Today we're going to take a second look at another battleground state for 2024 and see which way it might be trending. And that state today is going to be in the Sun Belt. It's the Tar Heel state, that's North Carolina. So here's the familiar map, and this shows you the presidential changes between 2016 and 2020. Nationwide, there's a lot more blue than red, but if you look at North Carolina, you'll actually see more red there than compared to some other states. So it has been a close state the past few elections, but as usual, we're going to start off with a little bit of background information. So first off, North Carolina has 16 electoral votes. That's up from 15 in the previous election. And it was close in 2020. Trump won it by about 1.3. It's about the same total Trump got in 2016, but Biden outperformed Hillary by more than 2 points. One factor there might be the reduction in third-party vote in 20 compared to 16. It was also narrow in 2012 when Mitt Romney won the state by 2 points over Barack Obama. So in the last 3 elections, Democrats have come up short, but in 2008, they were able to capture the state. Obama, during his first run, got it by under a half a point. Prior to 2008, it was an easy double-digit win for George W. Bush over John Kerry. And keep in mind, Kerry did have Senator John Edwards as his running mate and still lost the state by a ton. Back in the 90s, during the Clinton years, it was much more competitive, but each time it still went red. Some landslide wins for the Republicans in 88 and 84. Then 80 is much more competitive, but then the Democrats won the state by over 10 points back in 1976. So it's kind of a red state, but only marginally so. Democrats have been competitive enough here to where Republicans can't count them out. Now let's look closer at the last election. So again, we've got Trump winning it with just under 50% of the vote. Biden's at about 48.6. And if you're looking for third-party vote, you're not going to find much of it this time. Jo Jorgensen had the most, but she was still under 1%. If you go down to the county map here, you can familiarize yourself with some of the major cities. They've got Greensboro, Raleigh, Charlotte, and Fayetteville on here. Now, if we go down to the list of counties and sort by the total number of votes cast, you can see the 3 most populous counties of Wake, Mecklenburg, and Guilford easily went to Biden by over 20 points. But on top of that, the next 5 most populous counties also went to Biden. So with all that population voting blue, at first it might seem like Republicans won't have much of a chance here. The next batch of medium-sized counties, though, are the ones that Trump was able to win, and most of those were by 20 or more points. Once you get out of the lower population counties, there are a few blue ones, but for the most part, Trump won the vast majority, and most of those were by 40, 50, or more point margins. So once you add all those counties up, that comes out to an approximately 1-point win for Trump, the Republican. Now let's look closer at some of these counties and see which way they've moved. For that, we're going to get on Ballotpedia. Now this time, the shading does not indicate the margins. This just shows you how often they voted for the Democrat or the Republican in the past 3 elections. So if we start in the population-heavy county of Mecklenburg, it's got over 10% of the statewide population. This has the city of Charlotte, and it used to be the most populous county. And in 2020, it supported Biden by over 66%. And you can see that's more than Hillary got in 16 and about 6 points higher than Obama got in 12. Meanwhile, Trump is headed in the other direction. He's lost a good chunk of support since the days of Mitt Romney. Now, the most populous county that Trump was able to win is actually right next door in Union, and that went to Trump last time by about 24 points. However, Trump's support is almost 2 points lower than what it was in 16, and that already was more than 1 point lower than what it was in 12. On the other side, in 16, Hillary did do worse than Obama, but in 20, Biden did even better than Obama did in 12. So this county has moved about 6.5 points to the left since 4 years ago. Now let's look at some of the other notable counties. The actual most populous is Wake, and that has the state capital of Raleigh, but we're seeing kind of a familiar pattern. Going back to 2012, it was about an 11-point margin for Obama. Hillary then bumped it up to over 20 points. Then in 2020, Biden got it even higher, up to about 26. So with all that population, it's clearly gotten a lot bluer. Next door, we've got Durham County. This county is much bluer. Obama was already in the mid-70s. Hillary improved on that total, and then last time, Biden was able to top off at over 80%. Meanwhile, Trump's support was pretty much stagnant to where it was in 16, and that's also about 5 points lower than Romney in 12. If we go a little bit west, we've got Guilford County, and this is a similar pattern as the other counties. Biden's support here is now over 60%. That's better than both Hillary and Obama. Meanwhile, Trump's support in his first run was worse than Romney, and then last time it ticked down another 4/10. And west of there, we've got Forsyth County. That's got Winston-Salem, and in 12 and 16, Obama and Hillary got the same total at 53%. Here, Trump in 16 did worse than Romney. Then in 2020, Biden's support went up 3 points, while Trump's ticked down about 3/10. And you can do this all day, but we can't look at every county. Let's take a look at a few more. We've got Cumberland, that has Fayetteville, and this is the first one where Trump's support actually has ticked up in 20 compared to 16. It's only about a half a point, and even so, Biden's support went up more than that. He was over 1 point. Overall, in the state, there's a couple of counties that flipped in 2020, one in each direction, but so far we've we've seen mostly blue vote, and most of it has shifted even further toward the left. If you go to the northeast part of the state, we see some blue counties here, but these do have much less population than some of the urban areas. These counties also do have a larger percentage of black voters, but there you're going to see a potential bright spot for Trump. Even though Biden's support was over 60% in most of these counties, you can see the movement there is actually toward the right. Trump has gained a couple of points both in 16 as well as in 20 in many of these counties. So the appeal of Trump there might have kept this state in his column in 2020. But then if you look at some of the red counties in this coastal region, that's where Trump really starts to run up his margins. He starts hitting 60, even occasionally 70% of the vote in some of these counties. And also you'll see in many of these, they actually did get redder compared to those blue counties, which went in the opposite direction. Then if you head all the way to the western part of the state, you get more into the mountains. That's where Trump also puts up some big numbers. He gets more counties here with over 70%. And a lot of these margins are 40 or 50 points for Trump. So it is a very polarized state. There's a ton of red vote and there's a ton of blue vote. They've kind of moved in opposite directions. But next we can get on this map here, and this will show you the 2020 presidential vote all the way down to a precinct level. So once you're zoomed out, you can kind of see what we were just looking at. We've got a lot of major cities that have the big patches of blue. The Northeast also has some lighter blue areas. Then much of the rest of the state is red. But what we can also do is click right here. This will show you the shifts between 16 and 20. If we do that, things change, but there's still kind of a split of red and blue. If we zoom in on Charlotte, you can see a lot of precincts did move toward Biden, but most of those are outside the city itself and more into the suburbs. A lot of those shifts even hit 10 points. But you'll also see some lighter red precincts here that move toward Trump in the middle of the city. It might not look like much, but in a state that has had some narrow margins in the past, even picking up just a few hundred or maybe a couple thousand votes could be the deciding factor. But other than that, we have seen a lot of suburban shifts in different states that have moved toward the left. Doesn't mean it's going to happen again. 2020 was a unique election, but these kinds of changes do show you where the strengths and weaknesses could be for each side. Next, we can move on to this map here. This has the red and the blue arrows, and those indicate the shifts between 16 and 20. Red is toward Trump, blue is toward Biden. The bigger the arrow, the bigger the shift. So right off the bat, you can see it's a clear split, a bunch of red and a bunch of blue. But you can also click on any one of these arrows for a more detailed breakdown. Let's take a look at a county we haven't looked at yet. How about Buncombe County? And that has the city of Asheville. You can see in the lower right, both Biden and Trump gained raw votes, but Biden gained a lot more. He was over 21,000, while Trump was at about 6,700. Also take note of the reduction in third-party vote. It was down about 2/3. That's a raw 4% reduction, all the way down to just 1.6. And throughout all those shifts, Biden went up 5.4, while Trump went down 1.5. So that's a pretty solid shift there toward Biden. You could also do the same thing for any of the other counties. So another thing that could be a factor when determining the shifts that we touched on a little bit ago are going to be the shifts among specific demographic groups. To get an idea of that, we could take a look at the 2020 exit polling specific to North Carolina. And we could see that Trump won men by about 9%, but Biden won women by about 5%. With the age breakdown, Biden won voters under 45, including 18 to 29 by double digits, but Trump was able to capture those over 45, including 65 and up by 10 points. Now we can't go over everything. We've got the education breakdown here if you want to take a look at that. And then we've got the income breakdown here as well. This is pretty much back and forth. Biden won those with under 25,000 by 7 points. Trump captured those with 100K or more by just 1 point. And another thing to point out, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to be talking about, is going to be the racial or the ethnic breakdown. Here we've got white voters that supported Trump by 23 points, and they did make up 75% of those in this survey. Black voters, though, went for Biden by 89 points. And then Hispanic voters actually broke for Trump by 50 to 46, but they did only make up 3% of the survey. So if Trump continued to make gains with black voters and maybe got his support up into double digits, that could hold off some of these suburban trends. But Harris is also looking to get 1 or 2 more points out of the white voters. That could also be enough to flip the state blue if the other margins held. So another key factor is going to be the voter turnout or the enthusiasm. This map here shows you the turnout of the last 3 federal elections. In the blue wave of 2018, the turnout for North Carolina was 48%. In 2020, it spiked up to over 72. Then in 2022, it fell all the way back down to under 48. I would expect it to be somewhere between 20 and 22. It's really tough to predict what the enthusiasm is going to be on election day, and if that's going to be the deciding factor for determining the winner. So even though Democrats have come up short in recent presidential as well as Senate elections, they have had success for governor. They've got another key race happening this year. But if you look at the last governor's election in 2020, they did have incumbent Democrat Roy Cooper winning re-election by about 4.5 points. And if you go down to the county map below, this might give you an idea of what the margins might have to be in some of these counties if it's going to flip for president. So the last thing we're going to do is get back on Wikipedia and take a look at the polling accuracy back in 2020. So remember, Trump won the state by about 1.3, but the aggregate polling polling actually had Biden ahead by under 1 point. Real Clear Politics did have Trump ahead by 0.2. So it's far from terrible polling, but it did underestimate Trump's support by anywhere from 1 to 2 points. And in a close election, that could be everything. Most of the individual polls in the final couple of weeks actually did have Biden in the lead. So with all that data in mind, which way will North Carolina trend? Well, we've taken a look at a lot of counties and we saw a polarized state. Tons of blue vote out there that's gotten even bluer, but there's also a lot of red that's spread out that's gotten a little bit redder. Some unlikely demographics might also be moving in opposite directions. So there's enough there for each side to feel like they could be competitive. Now, given the state has gone red the past 3 elections, Republicans cannot afford to let this one slip away. If they get reasonable turnout, they should be able to win it. But if there is a burst of enthusiasm for Harris and that doesn't go away, then this state could be on the map for the Dems. It's super difficult to say what's going to happen. Generally, I think when the party in power is unpopular, the state should move in the other direction. But given how unconventional this election has been and the baggage on both sides, who knows what's really going to happen. But this is a state that has gained population and an electoral vote since the previous election. Republicans were easily leading here when Biden was on the ticket. Now Democrats feel like it could be competitive. I do think it's an easier path for Democrats to win that seat for governor. We'll have to see what happens, but that's an overview of North Carolina, so let me know in the comments. What do you think about this state? Is it just fool's gold for the Democrats? Or could Republicans potentially be in danger of losing the state? Which counties or which demographics are you looking at the most? And what do you think the final margin is going to be? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to help support the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.